Sir, you have seen many cycles in this business. So if you were to sum it up in a single line, what would that be?
The world is volatile. I think if I was to sum it, I would say that you always need to navigate through these seas as they keep changing.
So in this case, specialty chemicals, the demand drives your, way forward, or your R&D created something, you then make a market.
R&D can always create things, and then you can spend a life trying to find a market for it.
So when you go into a new market like that, in a new product, so 2x2, it's new market, new product. How do you manage risk without losing focus?
We put ourselves a clear guideline as to how much money we will spend, and also what the outcome would be, and the fact that we would focus primarily on one molecule as we would take it down.
Sir, do you think more agro-based businesses in India have potential to innovate and enter global markets like what you're already doing?
India is rich in the sun, the soil, and the small farmer. What I would strongly feel is that there is a lot of potential.
Sir, do you think as a country, whether it is ethanol, sugar, CBG, SAF, we will move from policy-driven to market-driven?
The importance of policy can never be understated. Policy helps create an environment in which innovation should flourish. And I think Indian policy has been very supportive.
What other fuels are now helping us move towards self-sufficiency, like DME, some new players?
I think ethanol is big.
Of course.
Ethanol can be bigger. The second is also CBG. I think compressed biogas can be a big thing going forward in the future as well, as we all develop.
So what is the sharp message to the policymaker in that sense?
I would like to give this message to policymakers that India can be much more self-reliant than what we imagine today.
Today, our guest is Mr. Samir Somaiya, the chairman and managing director of Godavari Biorefineries. It's a special company that has moved from sugar to clean energy to even pharmaceutical drugs in different markets like US. Mr. Somaiya is a product of Cornell and Harvard. He brings in decades of managerial experience scaling this company, science, policy, and more. I'm your host, Sriraman. This is the ChiniMandi Podcast. So welcome, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, you have seen many cycles in this business. So if you were to sum it up in a single line, what would that be?
The world is volatile. What appears to be calm seas for a period of time can suddenly change overnight. So I think if I was to sum it, I would say that you always need to navigate through these seas as they keep changing.
So there is always a Samudra Manthan waiting to happen.
Times are always a changing.
Right. So if you look back at the entire journey of Godavari, what are the two things that were pivotal or transformational in nature?
You're talking of Godavari. Godavari is an old company from 1939. So as the company's memory would be fairly different than mine.
Okay.
Company was born just before the World War II. It saw Indian independence. After Indian independence, it saw the Nehruvian approach of what I will say import protection and planning. Then it saw the Manmohan Singh liberalization. And then now it is seeing
Narasimha Rao
Manmohan Singh Manmohan Singh liberalization.
License Raj, liberal.
That's right. And now we are seeing the new India.
Right.
So this is how I think India changed. And so the company had its own pathways as we see through this period. The initial time was, if you look at it, there were times in which farmers did not want to use irrigated water because it used to be considered apavitra.
Oh wow, which era was this?
I'm talking of the late 30s, early 40s. Wow. So if you want to tell people to plant...
Culture does eat strategy for breakfast.
अगर आप ऐसे सोचें कि this is the river water, and so let's take, because we were started at the banks of the river Godavari, you have a sense of pavitrata of the river, and now if man is trying to control the water, you have a sense of whether this water is as pure as the water of the river. So it's just an interesting thing. So convincing farmers or working with farmers to improve productivity. And that is a thread that continues in the work we do, which is co-creating with farmers, working with them to try and see how we can improve. So that is some sort of DNA that continues. Later on, if I look at it, the company backward diversified into farms. And a lot of farms, we had more than 20 or 30,000 acres of farms in rural Maharashtra.
Entities are not allowed to own farms.
That happened later. So that's what I'm coming back to. So you had a period of backward integrating into farms.
Okay, so they were allowed to own farms.
That time I'm talking pre-independent and newly independent India. So had more than 20, 30,000 acres of farms. So you have that farms that were there, and a lot of the Bhivandi tabelas that you had, where you had the buffalo dairies, a lot of the dung was picked up by us, loaded into trains, and sent for what would be considered regenerative agriculture across these farms. Again, a lot of that thread continues in what we do 80 years later in the future. I'll explain that later. But so this is how it was, and then suddenly you have discontinuous changes. In 47, you had the wonderful independence of India. So, and that's the time when the country started to do ethanol. Now, it's interesting to think of ethanol today as something new. But you have to think, before World War II, the world was driven by what was called power alcohol. And the fossil world only emerged in the way it is today post-World War II.
Oh, okay. So the rise of US and
just the rise of oil, rather the rise of the so the geopolitics and the rise of oil came post-World War II is when it took real shape. So the company, if it did ethanol in the late 40s or early 50s, it was because it was the thing to do at that time. And then fossil came on, but the company decided to backward integrate. That was led by my grandfather, K.J. Somaiya. And so it went backward into farming. And later on, when my father took charge in 1959 or 1960, that's when he decided to do chemicals from ethanol. But then land sealing came and the farms went away. And
so the company had to give back or sell it back to farmers?
I think they were just taken away. And but the idea of doing chemicals. But in those days, the world of chemicals was import protected. So duty structures under the Nehruvian approach was to be self-sufficient, but you protect the industry with high duties, and at the same time you license everything. So you plan everything, so you can't do more than what you are licensed to do on one end, and then you have large import protection. So at the one hand you cannot innovate, at the other hand you're protected with high duties, so you're not driven in what we call the today's competitive landscape. I joined the business in early 93, and that was just a year after you had the Narasimha Rao liberalization under what was a very difficult time for India. So we had businesses that went from having very good protection, especially we had chemicals that we were making in a separate company. And you had the selling price and the raw material price completely change overnight. So this is again serious disruption. So looking back, when I joined the business as a young master's in chemical engineering student, I was asked whether we could create a business that was going to be research driven, one that would not be afraid of international competition, and also be, whether you would be vulnerable to government policy or you could be out of that government policy. If you remember those days in the 90s, intellectual property rights were not there in India. That came much later in the WTO. And lots of people took the easy way out of finding technology by going by other ways of doing it, because that was a different world. And so it was very interesting when my father asked me to go ahead and build my own team. I was a 26-year-old youngster, and said, go build your own team. We need to think of a new India. So we took that very close to heart, that is, be research driven, to build a backbone which is not afraid of foreign competition. To try and see if we could be not so vulnerable to government policy. And last, which I decided to stick on, which was what I wanted to do, because everybody was saying that the world of green chemistry is not there anymore with this whole changed import landscape. why don't you switch out of green and go into fossil? So I just had a nice chat with my dad. I said to my dad, Dad, we have to be true to the earth and we have to be doing work that is sustainable. So let's stick to your imagination of being green. And I'd like to continue and do it in this fashion. So that was how we emerged for my start.
That was a good vision, and it has.
It's a tough one.
Yes,
it is a tough one.
A principle is not a principle if it doesn't hurt. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So sugar is seen as a very controlled business, but you have built a very different business and grown. So where did this philosophy come from?
I think you go back to the conversation which we just had.
Led.
So if you start from scratch and with that thought process, so you want to first innovate.
Right.
So if you want to innovate, it has to be driven by research. So the idea was we already had a chemistry backbone within the system. My father himself was a BSc in chemistry. I was a chemical engineer. And we started thinking about, we were making chemicals in a different company. Okay. So as we went in time, we merged them. But the whole merger was of a chemical thinking, but of a very different one. What was earlier that you went out and licensed technologies was now different that you create technologies.
You are becoming indigenous in...
We just want to be independent, want to develop a research team that thinks about creating value, and creating value that was not only not afraid of international competition, but which could put our products into the market elsewhere in the world.
So let's say the company made 100 rupees back then, how much would have gone into research?
I think the question was not as to how much money we put in research. I don't even have the number on me right now, but it was changing a mindset. You come into a particular business which you have the license of a particular technology, and that technology didn't make sense in the current environment of low duties and different fossil economics. So you have to now suddenly start thinking of making chemicals which can compete in the world. So initially we made simpler chemicals which I would say would be commodity based. But later on in time, like ethyl acetate. But ethyl acetate fundamentally became a commodity based business because the technology in ethyl acetate is not so difficult to do. So then we made another decision, and I still remember the decision in our boardroom where the choice was to do more sugar or to do more ethyl acetate versus going into specialty chemicals, which didn't seem to be very large numbers, but it seemed to have a lot more investment in research and in building relationships and co-creation with customers.
A value-volume balance kind of an approach?
Yeah, much more value, much lower volume. But much longer time. So any product development which included work in the lab, which included work in the pilot plant, which included work with customers, which included work with making sure it worked for their end-use applications, that process could take anywhere from 5 to 8 years. So do you take a call because you could go at the end of 5 or 6 years and find out that it didn't work. So these were the kind of decision processes or decision steps that we took.
So while all this was happening, sugar was its own orbit? Or was
sugar was there. So this is also, by this time we had put the companies together. But let me go back and even think of cogeneration, for example. So those days people did not do cogeneration.
This is 40 years ago?
No, I'm talking 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
But if you, in that, in the 90s. So I'm talking about cogeneration. So people were using, you use low pressure boilers. And nobody thought that the sugar industry could use high pressure boilers and become mini power plants. I still remember when USAID gave us $1 million grant to demonstrate what they called was a greenhouse gas mitigation system, which was cogeneration. And so today it seems like commonplace that every mill cogenerates. But go back to the 90s, everybody was afraid and thinking whether a sugar mill could actually cogenerate. So we already were doing ethanol from before. We started doing cogeneration. And I still remember going further into the, 10 years later, when I wrote an article which was covered in the Financial Express, that India should use its sugarcane surplus as an energy feedstock. And as a company, we took...
This was 30 years ago?
No, this was 20 years ago. But I took the environmental clearance for juice to sugar to ethanol in the late 2000s. I wrote an article. There was a period in which sugar prices had completely collapsed. There was so much sugarcane, and there was no sugar. And those were the days where
No, there was sugar surplus or sugar
surplus.
surplus. Okay.
But we forget in time what used to happen. So in those days, the European Union used to not allow us to sell sugar into their markets.
We don't meet their standards or something?
No, it is just protection.
Okay. Embargo also.
But then they would sell sugar into the world markets at 1/3 the price of their local price.
Okay.
So those were the days in which we used to be talked about freedom of goods and freedom in the movement of capital in those post-liberalization days. And I still remember going as a young late 20s guy and talking in a particular seminar when we had people from the West that how is it that you don't allow movement of agricultural goods or people? So then they said, those are political questions. We only talk economics. Whereas I didn't understand actually the difference, because I thought it's all economics or it's all politics or it's all, but this is the reality. So I even went to the WTO in 99 and I spoke to the people from India. I remember the people from a lot of the developed countries came armed with huge delegations, huge preparation. We had minister, and we were about a few of us in that meeting. And I made a statement that, you should talk about removal of, the Europe should not subsidize exports, and we should have free movement of our sugar exports into those countries, or, freedom. And in those days, they said, well, sugar has so many quotas. There was a levy quota, this quota. And they said, आप एक्सपोर्ट की बात कर रहे हो, अपने को तो अपनी देश की देखनी है और आप कौन सी दुनिया की सोच रहे हो. And जब मैं talked about ethanol and sugar surplus, they said, ब्राज़ील की बात ये हिंदुस्तान में नहीं आएगी. This is India. You don't live in that other world. So these were interesting questions for a late 20, early 30-year-old guy to debate with all the system over there.
Very proud now to have proved all the cynics wrong.
Well, I still come up with interesting ideas for the country, which people tell me are not probably possible to do.
That brings me to the next question. So what does the next phase of the company look like? Because so far, none of what you're doing is a classic sugar mill.
But I don't consider myself a sugar mill. I consider ourselves a biorefinery.
Okay.
I think the way we look at is that policy is good, policy is needed, going back to being free of policy. I think no, policy always is there to encourage a particular country or a country to go somewhere, or a company to innovate within that. The way I'd like to think about it is that the policy, what we consider as our restraints, should be considered as a floor.
Okay.
And we should innovate so that the floor is there to protect you and the innovation is there to enable you to fly.
Right.
So this is the way we look at it. So I think you have a biorefinery within its boundaries has foods, fuels, chemicals and materials. So foods is essentially sugar. Fuels could be electricity. It could be biofuels. It could be CBG.
Yeah.
And then you have, as I said, chemicals and materials that come out of the biorefining process. The last portion is where you need tremendous amount of innovation. Innovation in the fields of physics, chemistry, and biology. It's not that you don't need engineering innovations inside the factory. Those are also very much required to keep going, improving your efficiencies and processes. But the different kind of innovation is required when you're doing a lot of specialty related work.
Right.
Because that takes into account not only the science required in doing the chemistry or making the product, also in the application development for its end use.
So in this case, specialty chemicals, the demand drives your way forward, or your R&D created something, you then make a market?
It depends on the application. Okay. It's necessary always to work with a potential demand.
Latent demand or a potential
R&D
demand.
can always create things, and then you can spend a life trying to find a market for it. I think it's always good to have, if it's an energy thing, such as if it's DME, if it works, there's going to be a market for it. On the other hand, you know that there is a particular chemical company, and you know that their end use application, they're looking for a particular reduction in their carbon footprint.
Right.
And
CI
they
or-
know
yeah.
that they need a particular application, which is a particular coating, for example, that meets a particular need. So then you can co-create with them that here I have this particular product. It's a substitute. It's not a drop-in. A drop-in is an exact substitute. So that's one. And another is where it's a substitute, but where you have performance enhanced properties. So then you have a twin benefit where the customer will say not only is his or her carbon footprint going down,
but also efficient.
it's
in other
also
ways,
maybe
yeah.
providing a set of properties which they did not imagine it to have.
Right.
But that process itself takes a lot of time because you're doing work to create it. You're doing work always to test the application in partnership with somebody who's working.
So the cycle, I assume, would be you first identify a latent market or a latent demand, then come back, try to.
I think the
Innovate,
whole
right?
business is to constantly be working with similar, like-minded ecosystem.
Right.
So you're always working, you're always talking. And because we are in the field of renewable chemistry, biorefining, companies around the world know us as a company that is doing this kind of work. So for example, last year in Germany, there was a program in renewable chemistry and the circular economy and defossilization. So Godavari was privileged to be invited to be the keynote speaker in this particular conference, where much large chemical businesses were there, but we were also invited to speak to understand how we are innovating.
Right. So if there was a young miller listening to our conversation today, what message would you like to tell?
I would first like to give this message to policymakers, for example.
Okay.
I still used to think, I used to chat with my dad and tell him, this is kind of a belgadi business. But after I understood and thought deeply about it, I thought this is a belgadi business jiske piche aap ek rocket engine bitha sakte ho. So what I would try to say is, this is a belgadi business, which is what keeps it alive. And this belgadi business gives you, you can put a rocket engine in it because it has so much future in it. The way I like to think is, and it's interesting because I think it was ChiniMandi who carried my interview in February 27th February of this year,
right,
which is one day before the crisis that erupted in the Middle East. And if you see what I had said is that every country in this geopolitical world should play to its strengths. And in India, the strengths are the sun, the soil, and the small farmer. So if you couch innovation in that, then we have to see that how we can be strong.
Right.
Because we are rich in the sun, we are rich in the soil, and we are rich in the
virtuous circle.
And we have the small farmer. So this belgadi business is your strength, your soil and the sun with innovation with that rocket engine. And of course, separately, you're seeing yesterday's news about the nuclear science that is going on. So I'm saying we should play to our strengths. So it's a combination of things of how we try to challenge ourselves to rise to this new reality.
Right. So that is the case of any good strategy, play to your strength.
Yes.
So what is the sharp message to the policymaker in that sense?
That India can be much more self-reliant than what we imagine today.
Okay.
If I go back 20 years and I said India can export sugar, and they said, how can it be possible? We are exporting. 30 years ago. 20 years ago, we said that our ethanol can go from juice to ethanol. We are doing much more than that because we are seeing many more crops to do that. Today, I think we should set out a bold target that can we be fully energy self-sufficient. Now, whether it's nuclear, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, and whether it's biomass, can we imagine?
Right.
And then let's work backwards and see where we can go. 8 years ago, when the government set out a target of 20% blending by 2030, people said it's not possible. The whole world said it's not possible. But we achieved it 5 years ahead of schedule. And today, you have enough ethanol in the country to actually have a 40% equivalent. If you had flex cars out there, you have so much petrol substitution possible.
Sir, as much as I'm celebrating that with you, where do you see the needle moving beyond the E20? Because that's been a question asked too many times.
I think we have to, firstly, I think you have to realize that we achieved the target 5 years ahead of schedule.
Yes, I'm celebrating.
So firstly, you have to be patient with the policy to adapt to this faster than achieved reality. And, I'm very bullish. I don't think we have to look at this industry in 1 year snapshots. We have to look at it in 5 year snapshots. So just see what we have achieved in 5 years, the last 5. You have to think again, not in what will happen in 1 year, but what will happen in the next 5. The first question is, do you have a choice but to defossilize? One is from climate point of view, and now which is even more apparent from a geopolitics point of view, energy security point of view, and of course your farmer income security point of view. So first you have to say, I don't have a choice, and it's desirable to move in this direction too. Flex cars are known in Brazil for last 40 years. There, you just need to get the flex cars out.
Later this year.
The GST today on flex cars is 40%, I think, much higher than the EV cars. You got some rationalization. And my other question is, why not let the cars, why not let the industry, in addition to the ethanol blend, sell the ethanol directly? If the moment it doesn't, one is you sell for a 20% blend and it goes all over the world. The second is, what if I can make the E100 and put it in a pump outside? I encourage my farming community or all the neighboring in my sugar area to convert to the flex cars.
Or even a flex generator. I think Kirloskar demonstrated that.
So I'm just saying that so long as we can distribute ourselves, we will be much faster, because there are pockets of huge energy sufficiency from biomass. So where you have that sufficiency.
Currently the price is on the higher side even for us to export it or to sell it in other means, right? Because the price was set higher for better farmer income.
I'm just saying, let's again live in now let's think of it as a consumer. How much are you paying for your petrol?
Sir, but the energy equivalent or the calorie
is 70%. Of petrol, 70%.
Right.
So today, how much are you paying for petrol? 110.
Right.
And that price is currently, the change in oil prices are today not reflected in the 110 rupee price.
Yeah, we try to keep it as stable as we can.
But it is not.
Yeah,
at some point, it will have to reflect the new reality.
Yes.
Today, if you took 30% of that, and because what we are selling at 65, 70 rupees to the oil companies, you're lower, you're cheaper.
But the efficiency is 70%. So,
but you're more than, today you're paying 110 rupees without the reflecting the new oil price. Today you're paying
the shock hasn't yet reached.
The shock hasn't reached.
Right.
If you did 30% off on 110, and we are selling at 65 rupees, you're still lower. You're probably 40%, you're 60%, not 70%. So cheaper per kilometer traveled. And I think you can't be transactional when you have to think strategically. And you cannot be transactional with the climate and the planet either. If you be transactional, then you will basically drive down the planet and think of transactions. So I think, and your farmers otherwise you have, the food and the fuel, food first, fuel second. You have to prioritize self-sufficiency in the country. And, otherwise, if you create, in my opinion, the earth has a significant, if you do regenerative agriculture, you have significant possibilities of increased yield. If you provide that increased yield, then that increased yield will provide you biomass. And if the sugar market, if you see, is largely flat, then where will that higher biomass go? If it doesn't have an outlet to go, you will once again return to the cycles of sugar prices and cane arrears. Then you will have to find other ways of subsidizing it. This is a much smarter way of doing it, meeting the growing energy demand of the country in a smarter way. You take the volatility of geopolitics for granted, but we believe that the volatility of climate is something that we should control against.
Well said, and I can't agree more. In fact, there are the flex fuel vehicles coming later this year, maybe next month or so. May and June we have.
But they still have a much higher GST. If you make it a little more rational.
There is, I think, conversation on that too, because the EV has been overly subsidized.
That's right.
And EVs are already pricier. You are subsidizing that. Buyers of EV are already well-to-do, whereas buyer of a first small FFV, right, deserves more than a second car for one more person, right? Anyway, so sir, beyond sugar, right? So I don't think most companies can think of sugar companies can think of drug development, and not only that, you are doing it in a different market like US. Please shine some light.
No,
on
I'll
this.
repeat again that I consider ourselves as an innovation-driven company.
Right.
And innovation is in serious science, whether it's in the farm, whether it's in the lab. And in the lab, it is great knowledge of chemistry, biology, and of course, physics. So, you know, we were going back 20 years, we were always thinking of, you know, crazy ideas. हिंदी में कहेंगे एक उमंग थी, आज भी उमंग है, but it was a different thinking that let us think boldly. And the bold thinking was, why can't we think of doing specialty, everybody, you know, specialty chemicals from biomass? It's a bold thought.
Okay.
Why can't, and that any biomass, you know, and if nobody's done it, so what? Why can't we be one of the leaders? So I'm thinking, you know, you have to think, go back 20, 25 years when Indian companies more or less did not think like that. We were still licensing and still looked at other people to, why can't we think for ourselves? Similarly, the thought came that, yes, we are fantastic in generics. I'm just trying to make you think of a mindset. Licensing a chemical to make it. Company goes off patent, molecule goes off patent, I take it and I make it. I'm just trying to give you a mindset, a thought mindset that, okay, even if it's a chemical I want to make, I'll go and get an engineering company in the world, go to them, tell them, do you have a process to make ABC, and I license it and make it. That's one. And in the pharma business, it goes off patent, I put it out and I go.
Generic.
So the thought process in our company was, do we always have to rely on somebody else to think for us? And I'm not discounting that. There is great skill required to think about scale and market. So I am not in any way discounting it.
I agree.
This is for
It's
our,
not seen in that light. So
it's for our company where we thought, can we just do something, envelope. Since we are good in science and we are doing some interesting work, why do we always only have to be the generic producer? Can we imagine a world of drug discovery where we are making serious science, just like we are doing specialty chemicals, where we are pushing the envelope? So that it came more out of a zid, I will say, to show that
soul searching which yielded result.
It's not yielded yet, but it's come a long way. It's you know, it's fantastic to imagine that and think, can you do it? But from there to understand what cell lines are, I still remember I had no clue what a cell line is, because a cell line is then where you test the molecule on a cell line, then you try and do analysis on it. There are these various assays. That is much later, but first a lot of assays are there to try and understand, is it working on that stem cell? Is it not working? What is a stem cell? I mean, I'm just going back. And then, of course, you go through preclinical, you go through the mice tests, and you go further into the larger animal tests, and then you see it work, and then you come forward, then you go into the regulatory idea of doing also go and get safety trials, and now we are preparing for the preliminary efficacy trial, because we know we are not a pharma company, so we will definitely look for somebody to out-license this to. And we understand that US is the place where
that was my next question. Why US? What did it give you? India couldn't, or was there a gap?
The market is, the ecosystem for drug discovery is very rich in the US. And by ecosystem, it's not only the science. So it is the science, it is the understanding of the potential of the molecule, and the entire pharma and the business ecosystem around it. So that's why we decided to go to the US.
So when you go into a new market like that, in a new product, so 2x2, it's new market, new product, how do you manage risk without losing focus?
No, one is we are fundamentally a biorefining company. But we are a knowledge company. So that we don't divert our attention, we put ourselves a clear guideline as to how much money we will spend,
Right.
and also what the outcome would be, and the fact that we would focus primarily on one molecule as we would take it down. So while we would work on lots of molecules, because taking a molecule from there further is expensive, we decided to essentially see how it would work for one of the candidates as we went forward. Although we have a nice portfolio of stuff that we work on, we've worked on one primary molecule as we went for it. So you identify outcomes that you would want, and you identify that, beyond this, I will not spend.
This is my bet, or the pot I am setting.
This is what I'm doing. Right. But at the same time, your team is very good. You're building the science in the team. You've got great competence, great capability. And so you're very excited by the potential it brings, because, triple negative breast cancer is where that molecule is on. And triple negative breast cancer has, among the types of breast cancer, many of them have good prognosis. Triple negative breast cancer is an aggressive cancer, and it has not. So if we are, it's not often when you do something, people ask me, I always think of what are we trying to set out to do. One is to make a meaningful difference in the life of that person who's suffering. It's very easy to think about it in terms of, business and money. But I think, like, if people ask me, what do you do? I said, hum aapki zindagi mein mithas laate hain. So we bring sweetness to your life. I think it's important to always put
humanize it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, it's nice to think that if I make a particular chemical, and if that chemical is going to work in a type 2 diabetes, it's an it goes to make an API that goes to a type 2 diabetes molecule. It's important to always understand that that's what we are doing. It's very interesting. I make this chemical. No, I am making
the story of the bricklayer, right?
The story of each molecule. Why is it important? If I'm thinking of dimethyl ether, then it is going to be a possible, if it is successful, it is going to be a possible substitute to LPG. It is going to make a big difference to the energy security, plus it takes carbon dioxide. So you're dealing with climate. You're also meeting an energy security challenge for the country. And so I think it's important that when you talk about it, that this is what we are doing. That's, so I think, so the team is very excited. They're working at, and if you do triple negative breast cancer, it is a big molecule, and you'll make a difference in the lives of so many.
Right.
Yeah. And then, of course, the commercial reality is there to support it.
Bricklayer story, if you know that.
I don't know it.
3 people are laying bricks.
Yeah.
First one says, I'm laying bricks.
Yeah.
Second one, what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm building a wall. Third guy, what do you do? I'm building a university that will educate millions of people.
That's right. So it's
the same bricklaying.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Sir, do you think more agro-based businesses in India have potential to innovate and enter global markets like what you're already doing?
I mean, I repeat my statement that India is rich in the sun, the soil, and the small farmer. You need to, but just like we co-create with customers, we have to co-create with farmers.
Right.
I think we have to learn.
It's rare, right? Supply side innovation, rarely it happens. You don't see your supply as a partner.
But we are,
you are exceptional.
We spend, I think, the one is there is a deep love for the land. I love it. There is a beautiful saying in the Atharva Ved, Bhumi Mata Putroham Prithivyaha. So I'm the mother of, she is my mother, and I'm the son of the earth. And I think, it's very important that I don't know if you have been at 6 in the morning on a particular farm where the first rain has fallen, and you'll get the gandh of the mitti.
Yes,
it is no mitti. The first smell after the
fresh rain
of the mitti. Right. And I think that we are losing touch with those beautiful. So one is a pure, and if you go to a farm which has been farmed with regenerative agriculture, then that soil is alive. So you have to think of the soil as alive.
It is actually a handful
it is alive.
Soil has more microbes than people on the planet.
Provide you do it in a regenerative manner. Otherwise, you can make the soil lifeless. And then you will worry why you didn't get the yield because of the rain or not, but you realize there's no soil carbon left in it. So you have to work in a way, so you have to work with the farmer. The farmer will also teach you stuff. If you intercrop with certain crops, you will see that the urea
nitrogen is richer.
So you have to, but so one is what we tell them, another is what we learn from them. So you have to co-create. So what I would strongly feel is that there is a lot of potential we talk about how low our yields are. I look at what the potential gap is. So the possibilities are enormous. So you co-create with a farmer. You have a whole, so as Godavari, we want to co-create. So we have multiple feedstocks coming to our facility with good yields. So the farmer is better off, the earth is better off. I use our science to convert physical, chemical, biological means to make a whole range of products which go into different end uses, different applications, different geographies, and we continuously innovate for being this biorefinery.
Right.
Yeah.
So one such innovation, or rather let me call it as a breakthrough, DME, you just mentioned it. It's not yet mainstream in India. So where did you get the inspiration to?
But we have not made it mainstream either. We are currently working in collaboration with ICT.
Yes.
They have done the laboratory work in the university here. We are now in together with them working at it in our pilot labs. And if we establish at the pilot labs, then we do a scale-up study. The idea is you take the carbon dioxide, and which is abundant in a particular biorefinery. It comes out of particularly an ethanol facility. You get carbon dioxide coming out. You convert that carbon dioxide with hydrogen, and you make the DME. And DME then becomes a substitute for LPG. So this is again, ideas need patience, and they need hard work, and they need enormous optimism and a sense that we will do it. So this is what we are doing, and so it can only become mainstream in time. But we have to plan, just like you went from 2% ethanol blending to 20 from 2018. Everything starts with an idea.
So was this you saw CCUS already happening and you saw this potential, or?
I mean, this is our business. Our business is the circular economy.
Right.
I go back to what you talked about, that we always said that we would be green. And so we always think of the world as being a sustainable world, a beautiful world, and an inclusive world.
Valorization is a number one priority, right? Across.
I think everybody valorizes.
Right.
The fossil world is extractive.
Yeah.
And once it's finished extracting, it finds another place to extract from. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yes.
The agricultural world can also be extractive. But difference between agricultural extraction is you can also make it regenerative.
Yeah.
Innovation you need in both places. You take that barrel of oil, you need to be valorizing it to create value. You take that what the soil is, you need to valorize it. The way we look at it is you can continuously regenerate it. And it takes a different mindset to be regenerative in the world or circular versus being extractive.
Right. So your philosophy is so strong, the foundation is so strong for the circular and the...
So I think, everybody can make a choice that we will go this way or that way. We've made a strong choice that this is what we'll go. Now we understand that it is tough to compete in commodity chemicals in the green world. So we have decided in our thought process that we will go with specialty chemicals, because specialty chemicals, the value proposition is better, and the customer partnerships and co-creation is better, and they are also stickier relationships because you work with them.
Sir, one more on DME. If it becomes mainstream or if it's commercially viable, what role would it play in clean fuel? LPG, yes. What else can it do? Or even for LPG, what can it do?
Oh, it can be, I mean, we have to start modeling over there, but there's a lot of CO2 in the country.
Right.
A lot of it can be converted into, and you can have a blend in LPG as well. Now, what amount of blend that would be, that kind of calculations we've not done, but you have to think of, I think the country has to look at how it's going to meet its energy metric. So much, whether it's going to be nuclear or it's going to be biomass, or it's going to, this is essentially biomass. CO2 is coming out of a fermentation. But CO2 doesn't only come out of fermentation. CO2 comes out of combustion as well. So I think it can play a large role, but first it has to be successful.
What other fuels are now helping us move towards self-sufficiency, like DME, some new players?
I think ethanol is big.
Of course.
Ethanol can be bigger. My whole point was you work very well in the farm, you can get more biomass. So it's not only how you expand your crops, how you adapt the auto sector, because how you adapt the auto sector and how you get more ethanol. The second is also CBG. I think compressed biogas can be a big thing going forward in the future as well, as we all develop. I don't know so much to speak about SAF right now. Yeah.
Now for SAF, the 2027 target is almost around the corner. So next year before it becomes mandatory.
Yeah, I mean, as a company, we spend a lot of our time focusing also on chemistry and chemicals. So energy. So when I look at, when you asked a question and we talk about government policy to help us, so that's one to be a floor, and the chemicals and the specialities help us fly. So a lot of our time also goes into developing chemicals which are not driven by what I consider an energy market, which is policy driven. And those are very different markets which are driven by customer centric growth. So that's how. So we also
but won't it help you in your balance sheet that, let's say, there is a mandated SAF blend coming in couple of years down the line? It does. So
but we all have to, it's something that we all have to do. But, as I said, we all have to focus with our time resources where we are doing, and we have a lot of opportunities in the chemical world as well. Yeah.
So when you diversify, what is the scorecard you look at before you diversify in any business? Market potential or revenue or lack of regulatory bounds?
I think the first idea is just to explore. Just to explore. And then once you particularly explore, then the road, in its own sense opens up to you when you see how good the opportunity is.
Sir, I would love to hear in this exploration journey some of the things that didn't work out and what you learned from it. Anything from any anecdote or any.
Lots of, when you innovate, then not working out is a very,
part of the game,
very much a part of the game.
Yes.
So, there's so much stuff that you tried to do, and it could be that it didn't work out then. It might have worked.
Of time or
so it might even be that it didn't work out then, but it worked out later. You tried a particular thing on the farm and it didn't work out. So maybe I tried a particular practice, and then suddenly it might work 15 years later. So I think what I think, and same works with chemicals, biobutanol, which we are working on today, is something that we had tried even long ago. So
the market wasn't there for it back then.
The market is always there for it. The readiness of some customers to say yes, we will go with a lower carbon footprint was not there. So
the world.
I think so. It all depends. So I think some things may just not work.
Because the CFC is in the refrigerator case. I mean, there was a time it was accepted.
That's right. So I'm just saying. So there were sometimes some things may just not work. Sometimes they are too early, although they did work, they don't have a market for it. And sometimes they work. And
any failure that's dear to your heart, that it was your favorite bet?
No, nothing like that. I mean, I think it's all part of the game. You have your successes, you have your failures. But as I said, if you're always doing, you're always experimenting, you always have what I call a funnel. And your funnel, whether it's even drug discovery, you can't just go and get a molecule that works well.
That's true.
So whether it's a chemical, whether it's an end use, you always have a funnel. And not everything is, not all of them are going to come through that. It's a filter. So unless you have that sense of experimentation, you're never going to be innovative. Failure is part and parcel of this approach. Yes, absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
You also have a B2C brand, Jeevana.
Yes.
So how do you handle that? Because you are otherwise a completely B2B company, and suddenly there's also a B2C play.
No, this is again going back to how do you reduce volatility. So so we saw a sense that can we create go back in time when when the sugar prices used to be very volatile. And the price would go very high and then very low. So our whole approach was how do we deal with volatility? That's one. And the second approach was...
So when you have surplus, you could sell it yourself in that brand.
Now. I'm just saying how the thought emerges. And the second is, if I remember in COVID time, it was an interesting time where things were getting closed and everything was going on delivery. I still remember hearing my wife speaking to somebody and she told them that, our sugar is Either you take the brown sugar or you take the refined sugar. She was talking about how we work with the farmers. I overheard her conversation, how our haldi is so good. And so I said, wow, she's not selling it as a, B2C kind of thing. She understands the word Jivana very well. And so the whole idea was, how do I make sure that I get to our, what I like to have in my home, I try to make a product that also goes elsewhere.
Right, but it started as a hedge against.
No, both together.
Both
together.
Right. So if we meet 10 years from now, what would you want this company to be?
I want it to be recognized, continue to be recognized, and more so as a world-class innovation-led company working in the fields of mitigating climate change, in the fields of food, fuel, and biochemicals that meet the needs of the world and show an alternative model as possible. I would like it to be recognized one of the best biorefineries anywhere. And I would love to know that our drug discovery molecule has achieved success and making a difference in the lives of many. And it would be great if that was a success, then we could show how we can do more in drug discovery, provided that we show success there.
Right. So is drug discovery separate SBU now, or it's just operating with the
It is a internal division of Godavari,
right.
But we have now created a subsidiary in the US to help out-license this molecule. If it is successful, we will see where that direction takes us.
And that will become an entity of its own, and things.
I think that is not decided right now. The subsidiary is there to help find customers or partners to out-license the molecule.
Now, where I'm coming from is because you mentioned the vision for grow in that area. So, is there an idea of spinning it off as an entity by its own?
I think it's too early to ask that question. That's something that our board, we'll have to decide as the time comes.
So I don't want any forward-looking statements.
That's right.
But again, this comes from curiosity and not speculation. So I'm not speculating. Okay. Too early, I get it. I'll take that as an. Sir, do you think as a country, whether it is ethanol, sugar, CBG, SAF, we will move from policy driven to market driven? Because I always see any of the sugar, especially ethanol, especially, they're all policy driven. Most bets are made. Policy comes first, bet comes later.
I think policy can never be, the importance of policy can never be understated.
I agree. Yes, so for common denominator, so that everybody has a level playing field. That's the intention, at least most policies.
But you need policies to direct investment in a particular area. Policies help create markets. If there is no policy to reduce carbon, you will not see investment in carbon mitigating projects. So policy, I don't think you can ever understate the importance of policy.
I agree.
Policy helps create an environment in which innovation should flourish. And some innovations, as I said, when you do work in there are some markets where, we're talking energy markets. Energy markets have to be policy driven. The whole world is struggling for energy right now. Innovation is required to say, okay, now we can do this.
Right.
So I think, as I said, there's foods. Now, for example, in regenerative agriculture, we're working with the farmers. If everybody does that, and if there's a higher biomass yield, you need the policy to take that biomass yield into fuels. Separately, if you're doing specialty chemicals, specialty chemicals, there you work with customers. But you need policies that help us move our chemicals across borders. You need that trade agreements that help facilitate easy movement across borders. So, for example, I think you can't understate policy,
right?
But different importances in different places.
I think you are mastered, jujitsu. If there is a technique in that, it's a martial arts in the Eastern Asia.
Yeah.
Where you use your opponent's half the power to overturn them. The momentum that, let's say they're trying to hit you, you use their moment to turn them, right?
I don't know. They do it in Aikido, actually. I don't know.
Everyone sees policy in one way and you're saying, no, I need it. Please bring it on. I will use that to catapult my business into new market.
Policy needs to be facilitative.
Yes.
It needs to be encouraging. It needs to be, how can I help make this happen? So I think the aim of policy should be to imagine together and help make it happen. Sometimes policies can forget that and become restrictive.
Right.
So I think we must always come back in a circular manner to remember, what we are meant. So if we have imagined it, our Prime Minister has clearly said 2070, I want to be net zero.
Right.
In 2047, I want to be Atmanirbhar Bharat and Viksit Bharat.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm saying is going in the direction of 2047 and 2070. All of us have to, either we say we agree or disagree. I think these are noble goals. So I strongly agree.
Yeah.
So if somebody can articulate that we can use our biomass to do X, and either you debate that it's possible or not. You can't, but you don't deviate from the fact that that's the goal you want to go. So policy should then support it. That's what I mean. And I think Indian policy has been very supportive. And I think, just like I said, we achieved the blend target 5 years ahead of schedule, and we overshot it by so much. We should give patience to the government to adapt their
Recalibrate
goals,
the whole thing.
recalibrate, and now set, okay, now 2035, can we substitute not a E50, but can we substitute half of our petrol requirement? That will be a combination of E20, E25 and E100 somewhere. Because you cannot overnight change the car stock which is out in the market.
That's right. Sir, I have a few rapid questions for you. You can answer in fewer words, the better, or fewer in time, whatever works for you. So, one decision you took early that you are most proud of?
It was a interesting debate in our, it's not a 1 minute answer, but we had a very interesting debate in our boardroom. And we had the people who said, continue with more expanding sugar mills, build more sugar mills. And we had a group that said, put the investment in specialty chemicals.
Right.
So one gave a sense of great size, and one gave a sense of a small value, but small kind of. And in that debate, and I was the one person, everybody else, I mean, we have a whole team discussing, debating, and we decided to take the call to pick the specialty chemical approach. I think that was I think that, there are steps like that you take. So it's not a specialty chemical versus sugar, it's a mindset push.
Getting out of comfort, not being so safe that you want to be,
That's right. And then finally putting your money where your mouth is and making choices. If you have to make choices, I think that's a choice you took.
Today you have like more portfolio of 25 plus chemicals.
In that range,
Sir, one bet you think the industry is not yet placing in India?
I think we should really, together as a whole country, rather, India should place on itself and think that they will be far more self-sufficient in energy coming from our own resources.
Right. So, sugar or specialty chemical, what excites you more? You already answered it.
No, I didn't answer specialty chemical versus sugar in that sense. A biorefinery does all of the above. I don't think that one is excluded from the other.
What's your pet?
No, all of it. I don't. I enjoy being on the farm.
Right.
How can you imagine a circular economy? You cannot. Solar energy is not going to give you this glass to drink from. Solar energy is doing it via biomass.
Right.
So solar energy. This is also solar, but coming from biomass. So I love to be on the farm and working with my farmers. And once you get the biomass, you have to make everything from it.
A global company you admire?
Many.
Anyone?
No, I don't have. I continue.
It may not be a benchmark. But
but I have lots of benchmarks.
Okay.
I continuously look at different companies for what they do. And each company might be doing a different kind of. So firstly, innovation runs across all of them. So I like to see how they're innovative, and it could be innovative across fields. It could be product innovation, it could be marketing innovation, it could be financial innovation, but innovative.
So from a core tech, any company that inspires you?
No, many of them. I think it's hard to pinpoint, because somebody might be making a great commitment to being circular. So I will admire that somebody is taking such a large bet on being circular, and how they put their money where their mouth is. Because there might be some who say it and don't really do it.
Right.
Another could be a company of how they navigate storms in terms of their product portfolio, switching, etc.
A book or a mentor who shaped your thinking?
The mentors, there are a few. The book, I go with the Bhagavad Gita. I think the Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful text. One is at a spiritual level, another is at a psychological level. And if you think about that book, it is Arjun asking Krishna as a friend.
Arjun asking.
Krishna is asking Arjun. Arjun is asking Krishna for guidance.
Right.
And if you look at the book as a psychological text, a spiritual and also a psychological text, it's wonderful in the way it tells you to live life and also to face challenges as you come to.
Right.
Yeah, as mentors, I've had my grandfather and father as great mentors. When I joined the business, great mentors were people who were running parts of the company. I learned so much from them. The art of the possible, not the art of no, which is fantastic. There have been great people I have worked with in what was then UDCT and now ICT, Dr. Chandalia, who was there. Dr. M.M. Sharma continues to guide us today. Lots of people who have helped us. There is a Mr. Bhagat, who was there in the sugar technology mission. In our company, we had a guy called Mr. P.K.R. Nair, who ran our company. There was a Mr. Mangal Singh, who helped us, who was a consultant. So lots of people I have to say. But more than anything, the whole team of people, we work together. So many people who run the person I hired to make my own team, her name was Sangeeta. She's now the executive director of the company. Mr. Bakshi was the other executive director. He was a farmer who now the executive director. So, he used to always make trouble for us. I mean, not trouble, come up lots of list of questions. I said, if you think so easy, why don't you get in the company and try to solve it? And now he's the executive director of the company.
Like that One Day Chief Minister movie, that Nayak movie, the
I have no idea about that, but at some point I said you come in and now
a journalist asks 2 tough questions to the chief minister and he says, why don't you become
so
CM? He will say okay, and he becomes CM.
But I mean, this is there. Look at the way Sangeeta was doing the chemistry, and fantastic a lot of the work she does. And we had a gentleman called Mr. A lot of people, Mr. Mukashi, Mr. Joshi, Mr. Kavadi. I can keep naming people across the system.
Excellent.
That we all learn from each other.
Right. It's heartening to know the long list, but I'm sure there is more. Sir, where do you find refuge in tough times?
So, times I've been so volatile often. So, my first refuge is we have a temple at home.
Wow. Okay.
So, whether the times are tough or good, I sit there every morning. In tough times, I'll maybe sit there a little longer. And so that's the first. And that's when also where the Bhagavad Gita comes in, to be there. And the second is my wife, Amrita. She's always been a absolute rock. And I think that's also a great refuge. There have been times when you don't know where the world is going. And she would always say, be positive and things will work out. So that's the other refuge, just to be with her and of course the family. But she's been a great rock to be with. Yeah.
Glad to hear that, sir.
Yeah.
If not the family business, where else would have you been, fictitiously speaking?
I didn't ever think of any other option. That was deeply ingrained in my DNA as I was growing up.
One last one. What do you think of ChiniMandi?
I think you created a great name for yourself. Really good. I think your posts, your news are very thoughtful, very thoughtful and very thought through. Very nice to listen to you and hear you.
Thank you. So that means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And until we meet next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.